Okay.
So, once you have your outline, we're going to go over shading. And I wanted to review this because looking at the number 2 worksheet, we've got a lot of work on making your shading smooth. So I'm just going to take you through like what my thought process is when I do the shading. And I know that this picture is horrible, so we're just going to do our best. Let's start with this one. First of all, we don't want to outline it hard. You want to create the angles by the difference in shading. When I shade, I like to use a not mechanical pencil because they don't do a good job. And I like it to be slightly dull. So like even if I sharpen it, I'll do this until I have a rounded point, and I actually use the side. And the reason for this is because if you have a super sharp pencil, it indents the paper and you get like little scratchy marks that are almost impossible to blend out. And the whole goal of this is to not make it look like you can see any particular line, but just make it look like overall color or tone, okay? So if I'm looking at this picture, this cube has darkest here, kind of like a medium, fading to a medium light, fading to a light, and then pretty light. So I'm laying down my first layer. And again, my goal is to make it even so that it's not, I don't want this, like messy strokes. You wanna do as clean as possible, and for the most part, try and go in the same direction and same pressure. Like you don't want it to go super dark and then super light. You want it to be pretty even. And again, I'm pressing on the side because then you don't get direct pressure and it doesn't indent the paper. You just get like a wider overall color. Okay, so it's probably I'm gonna want it darker than this, but this is how I'm gonna start off. And just in general, anything that tucks behind another shape, we want it to be darkest right where it tucks behind, and that will make this shape pop forward. So even though they look pretty close in color, I'm going to make this darkest right here because that's furthest back and behind, and that will make this one pop forward, okay? If I made this lighter than that, it would tell your eye that this was in front of that, which we don't want. Okay, now, I personally like to shade my whole thing before I blend because when you blend, it gets messy and I just want to get all of my color in first. And I just realized I went over where I should have. So I'm gonna go back and erase that little line right there. Okay, so now here, I'm going to do a tone lighter. So that line is created just by the difference in color, not by an actual like outline. And since I didn't fully erase my grid, I'm just gonna really quickly erase those lines so we don't see them. So the shading should be pretty precise. I saw a lot of people either not blending or blending the whole thing so that the whole image is fuzzy. We don't want to do that. Like this, when we do blend, will stay totally separate from this side so that they look like two separate edges. Notice I'm not going here because that's super light. I'm gonna wait on that. I'm just going to where I'd outlined. Okay, and then I'm gonna start building up more color on this edge because it does fade from like a medium And light layers is always better because it will blend better. I'm trying to keep it so I don't see a line. You don't want it to be like stripes. Except for right here. You do want that to be a line. Okay, when I'm blending, if you have a blending stump, I like to kind of go around the edges first. So I would never blend this with this. I'm always going to keep them as two separate shapes. And I like to do like little circles to try and get rid of any streaks that my pencil, or inconsistencies that my pencil laid down. Okay. Then I'm gonna move on to this. And I might turn it because there's so much that probably got picked up here that when I first put it down, if I put it on the exact same spot, it would make this super dark. So I'm constantly turning to get like a fresh edge. And I'm pressing medium pressure. Okay, now I don't even need to lay color down there. I can just use whatever is on here to lay down a light amount of color. And if it's too much, I just take the kind of wide edge of the eraser, pick some of that up, and then maybe go in with a cleaner edge and reblend. And maybe I'll go in here and just sharpen this. So that's how we're getting our shadows. You don't want to just smudge, like I saw a lot of just putting down general tone and smudging, and you want to be more specific about it. So like here, I'm gonna do super dark, fading to light and stopping there. And even though you can't see this really, really well, I know that this is a cylinder and that a cylinder wraps around both sides. So I know that the lightest spot is going to be the spot sticking out, and the darkest spots are going to be at where it wraps around to the side. So I have it darkest on the edges, going to lightest right here where the highlight is. And I also know that this pyramid is going to cast a shadow. So there'll be a little shadow right along the underside of where that pyramid is laying on top of it. So it will be dark here where the pyramid is blocking the light, and it will be dark here where it's wrapping around the sides, and then it will have a dark spot all the way around here where to make this sphere pop out. So part of it is using your picture, but another part of it is just using, you know, your brain to go through like, okay, well, if the light is shining on this, where is it going to be lightest? Wherever it sticks out. And where is it going to be darkest? Wherever it wraps back, okay? So same thing with the cone. You've got these highlights here. I would not shade anything there. And like when you're blending, since this is super dark next to super light, I would definitely not use your finger on that. That's a detail that I would use the blending stick to get a really precise line where you leave this bright white highlight. Does anyone have any questions? The goal today is not to do the whole thing. I do not want you to rush. That's the most important thing. This is like a 4 or 5 class thing. I want you to pick 1 to 2 shapes and do them really well. And what I mean by that is not in 5 minutes. You might have to go back and keep building layers. So maybe you put it in, smooth it, and then go back and do more. Until you have it to where it looks really, really good. This should not be a fast, quick thing. It should be something that you do slowly and meticulously. Okay, so pick 2 of the forms, and your goal is to just get 2 forms really, really well shaded today. Okay? All right.